Bob Shaw, the craftsman who kept tradition alive. What makes a tattooer more than just a name in a history book? For Bob Shaw, it was precise hands, an iron work ethic, and a steady belief that tradition and professionalism belong together. Shaw helped carry American tattooing from the carnival midway into the modern studio. He did the quiet work, and he made the craft resilient. Today, we tell the story of Bob Shaw, his rise at the Pike, his push for safety, and the family that kept his fire going. Welcome to Skin and Story. Bob Shaw was born in 1926. As a teenager in St. Louis, he haunted Bert Grimm's tattoo shop. First, he washed dishes. Then he helped with photography. And finally, he asked for the real lesson. Teach me to tattoo. In his own words, Shaw remembered being under 16 in St. Louis, washing dishes by day and getting picked up for curfew at night. Bert Grimm put him to work developing quick finish photos in a dark room at the back of an arcade. It was a stinky, smelly job, Bob said, but it kept me close to tattooing. When he was not in the dark room, he was by the chair, learning. By 1941, he had applied his first tattoo. By the age of 17, he was covered from the waist up in Grimm's work. After serving in the Army, he returned to the trade, working with artists like Jack Tryon, Earl Brown, and of course, Colonel Todd. He learned from watching how Bert Grimm dealt with customers and how he kept the shop running smoothly. Shaw noticed details like how the flash was laid out on the walls and how sailors would sometimes pick tattoos based on speed rather than any personal meaning. These early experiences taught him that professionalism meant more than just clean lines. It meant running a shop that could stand the test of time. In 1964, Shaw moved to Long Beach to work with his mentor at the waterfront playground known as the Pike. The shop at 22 South Chestnut Place was a beacon for sailors and for travelers. Bob described the Pike shop as part of a giant arcade. In the front, you had portraits. Along the side, submarine viewers and the pinball machines. And in the back, the tattoo room. It was a penny arcade, he laughed. That arcade life made the Pike a magnet for soldiers and for day trippers. Speed mattered. Readability mattered. Tattoos needed to walk out the door bold, tough, and built to last. Shaw thrived in that pressure. In 1969, he bought the shop from Bert Grimm. By the 70s, him and Colonel Todd also took over Grimm's San Diego and Portland shops that were tied to the Grimm legacy. The Pike was unlike anywhere else in America. At its height, it had dozens of arcades, rides, and tattooers stacked door to door. Shaw's shop was one of the busiest, tattooing sailors before they shipped out, carnival goers looking for a thrill, and locals who wanted a lasting mark. Those who worked at the Pike recalled that tattooers sometimes did hundreds of tattoos a week, proof that Shaw's skill and efficiency kept him at the center of the action. One person who's been a tremendous help when I was researching this project is Brandon Gaunch Hook. He apprenticed at the Pike under Bobby Shaw in the late 1990s. He remembered walking into a shop that was still holding on to that history. He said that when his first apprenticeship fell through, he ended up calling every shop in the phone book until Rick Walters picked up and told him to come down. I was still in high school, working the night shift, and that's where I met Bobby Shaw. Later, Bobby told me he was just going to sell me a couple machines and kick me loose, but he kind of liked me, Gaunch recalled. That was Bobby's humor, sharp and dry, and it opened the door for one of last true Pike apprenticeships. Shaw's style lived inside the language of American tradition. Thick outlines, solid fields of color, designs that read from across the street. Eagles, daggers, ships, hearts, banners with names, they all meant something. He wasn't chasing novelty, he was building reliability. Clients came to him for tattoos that would hold up through time. Younger artists came to him for an education in durability and in discipline. One of those artists was Bob Roberts. The Shaws opened a Santa Ana shop in 1973 so Bobby and Bob Roberts could learn the craft. Roberts would later make his own mark in spotlight tattoo in Hollywood. Roberts would go on to say that Shaw drilled into him the importance of bold lines and steady hands. It was not only about creating art, but about building the tattoos that could survive a lifetime of wear. Roberts' later reputation for hard, readable tattoos in Hollywood ties directly back to Shaw's insistence on structure and clarity. It shows how Shaw's teaching rippled outward into the broader tattoo community. For my research, Bobby told stories about his dad all the time. From those stories, we can piece together a picture of a tattooer who worked hard, ran his needles off the tips, who laid in clean lines with bold shading and bright colors. Bobby said his dad was the first to start putting yellow in the leaves of roses, adding highlights of color in ways that pushed designs to another level. Bob would sleeve you down, Bobby used to say, meaning that having his tattoos made people trust you. Seeing those tattoos, they knew you were associated with good tattooing. Bob himself confirmed that innovation in a 1993 interview saying, "I guess I was the first person in the country to start highlighting a rose with yellow and to push yellow and green into the leaves. It made tattoos look better." But Shaw's legacy wasn't only visual. Through the 1960s and beyond, He pushed for cleaner studios and safer procedures. He spoke publicly about autoclaves, about hygiene. He worked directly with health officials to bring tattooing in line with modern safety standards. The goal was simple: keep clients safe, keep the craft legitimate. In a way, you could call Bob Shaw the Louis Pasteur of tattooing. Pasteur made science safer with sterilization. Shaw made tattooing safer by pushing for sterilization and professional aftercare. Every tattooer today benefits from those changes. Shaw spent countless hours in meetings with California health boards, often explaining that tattooers wanted regulation, not to avoid it. He emphasized that proper sterilization protected both tattooers and their clients. Many of the shop standards we take for granted today, single-use needles, autoclave tools, and written aftercare instructions, trace their back to Shaw's tireless advocacy in those decades. According to Gaunch, Bobby carried that same commitment to standards. He taught me to draw flash with Prismacolor and Rapidograph pens. When I did a rose and an ankh that came out good, we went ahead and ordered a swing gate and eagle kit, and he showed me how to assemble and tune machines. That's how I did my first tattoo. This connects directly to the legacy of Bob Sr., whose mechanical innovations set the standard for generations. Shaw also thought like a mechanic. He refined and popularized the swing gate coil machine design. It made it easier to break the machine down for cleaning and for repair. It sped up tube and needle changes. That design spread across the trade, and versions of it are still in use today. Colleagues remembered that Shaw always had a machine on the bench, tuning and refining. He believed that a tattooer should know how their tools work from top to bottom. Apprentices recalled how he would stop mid-shift to show them why a spring needed tightening or how to resolder a connection. His mechanical instinct made him a bridge between the earliest builders and the generation of tattooers who valued precision engineering. Gaunch recalled that Bobby had him build a swing gate and an eagle frame during his apprenticeship. When I started my research, I had believed that Bob Sr. created the swing gate, but later learned it was Lou Lewis who invented it, with Bob refining the design and spreading it across the trade. Back in the day, they would even cut up brass Jonesy frames to make new builds. Gaunch, the lesson wasn't just mechanics. It was that building machines, painting flash, and drawing every day was how you lived as a tattoo artist. The Long Beach shop at the Pike stayed a landmark. The Shaw family moved to Texas in 1983, and the Pike location kept operating under trusted hands. After Bob died in 1993, the shop continued. Up until 2002, after Wanda's passing, the Sons planned to close the Long Beach chapter. That same year, Harry Barber purchased the business, and it continues today as Outer Limits Tattoo and Museum. Visitors today can still walk into that same Chestnut Place storefront and see original flash on the wall, machines on display, and the echoes of generations who worked there. It's not just a functioning tattoo shop, but also a living museum where Shaw's presence lingers in the very layout of the booths and the stories told by the tattooers who keep the doors open. By the time Gaunch arrived, the Pike was on its last legs. The shop was on the dark end of the street by then. Dusty sailor hats lined the roof, and I think I was the first one to wipe down the flash in 10 years, he said. There was still a mix of customers. Working class folks, partiers, people looking for souvenirs, even punks and tattoo legends stopping by to pay their respect to Rick Walters. Pier 30 was part of the night shift, when a 12-pack would come out after a couple of walk-ins. He remembered the Pike feeling like a whole world still passed through, even in decline. All three of Bob's sons became tattooers. Larry Shaw started at the Long Beach shop in the early 70s. Later, he opened Shaw's Tattoo Studio in Houston. It was the city's first licensed tattoo shop. Today, Larry Shaw II carries the torch at Third Generation Inc. in Houston. The Shaws are often called America's oldest tattoo dynasty. Larry Shaw Sr. often spoke about how important it was to carry professionalism into Houston. By becoming the first licensed shop in the city, he set a precedent that tattoos could be art, business, and tradition all at once. Larry Shaw II has taken those lessons forward, offering both original flash and custom work and emphasizing that the Shaw name still stands for craft and integrity. Bob Shaw was more than a shop owner. He served the National Tattoo Association for years, first as vice president, then as a president. He unfortunately died in 1993. His colleagues honored him with the Golden Age Award. Later, it was renamed in his honor. Those who worked with him remembered not just his tattoos, but his patience. He could hold a meeting with city officials, then return to his chair and finish a tattoo without missing a beat. The Golden Age Award, renamed in his honor, is not only a trophy, but a reminder of one man's dedication to safety and tradition, and how it shaped an entire generation of tattooers. Bobby also had his quirks. Gaunch remembered one story Bobby told about asking his dad for tattoos on his elbow tips after he'd had a few drinks. Bob Sr. tattooed them perfectly. But he reversed the letters, putting S and B instead of B and S. He laughed and said, "You're an SOB anyway." Bobby eventually blacked them out. In one of the strangest memorials, Bobby had his father's teeth, gold teeth and all, mounted into dentures that he wore on a daily basis. Those stories show both humor and the grit that runs through the Shaw family. So, what do we learn from Bob Shaw? 1. Tradition is a tool. Use it to build tattoos that read, that heal, that last. 2. Professionalism protects the art. Clean equipment, clear aftercare, respect for the client. 3. Craft is a family story. You learn from those who came before you, you pass it on. His life is proof that a tattooer can be both an artist and a reformer. Shaw's fingerprints are on all the machines we use, the standards we follow, and the designs we still recognize. As Gaunch put it, the real lesson from the Shaws was how to live as a tattooer. Not just how to draw or how to tattoo, but how to treat people like family and carry yourself with integrity. Bob himself kept his humor to the end. He told one story about a man who asked what he could get for 15 cents. Now, 15 cents, even back in those days, wasn't enough for a quality tattoo. And Bob told him so. Hours later, the man came back showing off a tattoo of what was supposed to be 2 horses' heads. Bob laughed and asked, "What are you, a boxer? Those are boxing gloves." That was his way of reminding us that you get what you pay for and that quality matters. Bob Shaw didn't chase the spotlight. He preferred the bench, he preferred the machine on the mat, the steady buzz, and the steady line. He kept the language of American traditional alive, and he made the work safer for the people who wear it. Bob Shaw's story is one of resilience, craft, and family. From his own words to the memories of those who worked alongside his son, Bobby, we are reminded of how much one man shaped the path of American tattooing. My thanks to Brandon Gaunch Hook for sharing his Pike apprenticeship stories, to Jonathan Shaw for preserving Bob's voice in that 1993 interview, and to the Shaw family for carrying this tradition forward. Their work makes it possible for us to tell these stories the right way. That is the legacy, and it lives in our skin and in our story. Thanks for being here.